This is a big deal. For the first time, I think, since the accusations against Activision Blizzard came out, Bobby Kotick has actually responded. So, as you guys can imagine, I'm very keen to react to this because, I do think it's important that people get to speak their minds, and I'm honestly just very curious what he has to say. So, let's not even wait. Let's get right into this interview for Kotick coming out and really talking about what the heck was going on, because we still don't really know everything. And so I'm excited to see some information, but let's see what he's got to say here. Let's take a look here.
Surrounding Activision's workplace culture. How do you respond to that?
Look, like any large company with 16,000 employees, we're going to have some instances of workplace discrimination or harassment. We're fortunate. Over our 30 years, it's been a very small number, and it's something that we care deeply about because you can't create the kind of content that we've created over the long period of time that we have successfully without having a great workplace culture. Most of what
Okay, so he's not wrong when he says, look, no matter where you look, guys, and this is something people have to accept about life, right? No matter where you look in life, like, there will be bad apples. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't really like the finger pointing in nowadays culture where it's like, see, this happens here or blah, 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 blah here. And it's just extreme examples of people doing stupid stuff from, like, whether it be at Activision Blizzard, or you see it all the time in politics nowadays, which is why I hate politics so much, right? Like, everybody likes to finger point at the extreme. So he's not wrong, though. I don't think that really answers the question about what was going on. So we'll see what he has to say. And as for output, right, I don't think that you could also argue that our output was so good because we have a quality workplace. Like, the reality is the quality of the games have just not been up to par the last 5 years, right? I think, like, the last good Call of Duty, in my opinion, even was Modern Warfare 2019. Like, MW2 multiplayer really didn't get any of the content it was. Cold War was bad. I didn't like Cold War at all. Like, I didn't like Vanguard either. It was just explosive spam constantly. So, and then Overwatch 2 and its stuff. So Diablo 4, I think, which is coming out like this week, is the first game that really has a chance to change the tide for Activision Blizzard. But to say, well, our workplace is good, look at the output of the games. And it's like, dude, like the big commotion of the workplace was really 2016 to 2021 when all this stuff started happening. And your game quality significantly dropped since then, right? So you almost, like, that's not really an answer.
You've read in the news media is just a mischaracterization. Having said that, over the last couple of years, it's been a catalyst for us to say, how can we have truly the most welcoming, inclusive workplace in the world? And I think that one of the benefits of having the media attention, even as inaccurate as it was, is that it was a catalyst for us to say, hey, we can do better and we can improve and we can build a culture that is going to be the most welcoming and inclusive. And I think that over the last couple of years, we've done that.
Okay, I hate talk like this, and here's why, okay? What does that mean in substance, right? Nowadays, so many people will go out and say, like, oh, we want an inclusive workspace, we want to do all. Okay, but what does it mean? Like, I want a detailed plan. It's like what people are trying to do, right? Because when you make vague general statements, it's really hard to pinpoint what good you're actually doing, right? So this is why I can't trust that. Now, I will say the media does have a reputation of exaggerating things. As a content creator, we do it all too, right? Because that's what gets clicks and gets things, right? What I have been waiting for, and I was really hoping to hear details on, is I want to hear how this does in court, right? Because when this goes to court, we're going to finally know everything that went on. Like the courts, when all the information has to be presented, right? So if it gets settled in a public court, we'll actually be able to break down what was happening in Activision Blizzard. Because the reality is there have been a lot of accusations thrown around, but I want to know what actually happened if people are going to if it's a mischaracterization, or because, again, there have been cases in California, at least, where not really the state bringing it up, though. That's why I guess that's a bad example, because this was brought up by the state. So you just don't know. And this is more of like this wishy-washy back and forth stuff that I'm just so sick of hearing. I want to know if this got, like, terrible things were happening or they weren't, right? And like at a scale to where it's just more than a bad apple, right? Because that's the thing. Like, again, I kind of agree with what he's saying. And I think that anybody who's rational in the world can look around and say, okay, yeah, now that I look at, like, a lot of different places, there's bad apples no matter where you go, right? But if it's a consistent theme of like an entire culture, that's when the company's really liable for it, in my opinion. But no, this is just more wishy-washy. Like gosh, can we get some substance from anybody here?
Why is gaming having a moment right now in movies and television?
It really is the first time that we're seeing in my view, the translation of intellectual property from video games successfully in film and television. In the case of The Last of Us, you have Craig and Neil, who were and always have been incredible, exceptional storytellers. And they had an enthusiasm for games. So they made a game that was rooted in a really good story. The skills usually for building games don't really require you to have exceptional storytelling capabilities. They are much more visceral, and they require you to have game-making skills. In the case of Mario, Chris Maledandri and Shigeru Miyamoto are two of the most creative, inspired people that you could ever collaborate with. So you had great writer, great creative talent, both were inspired, but those are rare combinations. I wouldn't expect that to be the norm. I think that when you look out over the next 5 to 10 years, these are going to be two exceptions.
Okay, so why haven't any of Activision Blizzard's games gotten the storytelling they deserve? Mr. CEO, where's my Overwatch show? Where's anything like this? The same Call of Duty campaign, like recycled every year. Actually, no, I will say I did hear good things about the Call of Duty campaign. I'm going to ask you guys in the comments to fill me in on how the Call of Duty campaigns have been. I actually did hear pretty good things about them. But the irony of that is, it's like, why haven't you done any of that then? It's unbelievable.
How is the gaming industry similar to Hollywood, and how is it different?
I would say the closest parallels in terms of similarities would be more like animation. So I think if you look at a Pixar or Illumination, the process that you go through to create animated films and TV shows is more iterative. You know, you can create something, you can test it, you can see how it works with an audience, then you can improve upon it. And games are much more like that in terms of similarity. The differences, though, are pretty substantial. So if you think about successful film and television, it's all about suspension of disbelief and creating an emotional connection with the audience and characters on the screen through dialogue.
What kind of question is this?
Video game successes are more visceral.
We don't care.
So you're having a social experience, you're having a competitive experience. If I'm going to have you experience the vicissitudes of war, I have to make you feel like you're in a battle. If you're flying an airplane, I have to make you feel viscerally like you're flying an airplane.
Hot take. I actually really enjoyed Call of Duty World War II in 2017. I thought that COD was really underrated. It just didn't have the content or the like structure around it to succeed. I had a lot of fun playing that game. It was really fun. I had like 200 hours in that game back in 2017. So I thought it was fun. I thought that game was better than Vanguard, except it just didn't have the resources that Vanguard had with Warzone and everything.
But it's not an emotional connection that you have with a character on a screen. It's about how you feel in the moment that you're playing.
Yeah, that's true.
And the games themselves are much more social. So you're playing, competitively or cooperatively, and that's a very different experience than a story unfolding on a screen.
Why does your merger with Microsoft make sense?
Oh, here we go.
Our merger with Microsoft, it's coming at a really pivotal time. It's increasingly difficult to compete with companies like Sony and Nintendo that have these rich libraries of intellectual property and incredible technical talent and protected markets. And then if you look at the competition in China over the last decade, the biggest, most successful game and technology companies in the world are now Tencent and ByteDance. And these are extraordinary companies with extraordinary talent.
And now, this is where I actually am very interested in what he has to say. Because listen, say what you want about Bobby Kotick. I think Activision Blizzard has definitely fallen off over the last couple of years. But he is a veteran of gaming, and the knowledge that he has about the space and how things work is valuable. It absolutely is valuable. So it's very interesting to hear him say that, because this is something that I've really looked into myself a lot about the ongoing battle between Sony and Microsoft, which is why they went to acquire Activision Blizzard to compete. I've told this story countless times. It really was the console wars that started all this, right? And the Xbox 360 compared to the PS3 each sold about 45 million units worldwide, right? But when you went to the PS4, which is where Sony had their exclusives like The Last of Us, God of War, Spider-Man PS4, and Xbox had nothing, the PlayStation 4, I think, sold 110 million units worldwide, and the Xbox only sold like another 45. So they blew them out of the water in the previous generation of console. Which is why with the Xbox Series X and now the ecosystem that Microsoft's trying to create, they went out to buy one Bethesda to get Fallout, Elder Scrolls, all those titles to compete with the God of War, Spider-Man PS4, Last of Us, right? The list goes on for Sony because they absolutely killed it. They were ahead of the curve. And now Microsoft wanted to acquire Activision Blizzard to really just kind of get them over the edge in terms of beating out Sony, not just for these console wars. They're not going to make Call of Duty exclusive, but they want control of the most valuable IPs ever. This dates back, even if you look to the original founding of Microsoft, Bill Gates went to IBM with his idea, and IBM made the single worst decision in business history. And they told Bill Gates, they said, you can keep the rights to software, to your software, Windows, right? Nobody cares about software. They only care about the hardware. And obviously, it's not about the machine. It's about what you can make on the machine. That's insanely valuable. Both are important, right? And so, that's why they're going out making these big acquisitions. And it's very, very interesting to see how the space is getting more and more competitive and evolving. And this is where I actually do want to hear what Bobby has to say.
And so we're now competing on a global playing field that we had never competed on before. And if a company like Microsoft, that it isn't really a consumer DNA company, it's an enterprise software company that has a games business with a few franchises.
Man, that was so
or
bad.
A company like ours where we have a few franchises that have been really successful, but we don't have the same.
Get Overwatch off the screen. Get this off the screen. No, stop. Cap. That's cap.
Access to talent in AI and machine learning, in user interface and user experience and data analytics that a company like Microsoft might have. There are just so many companies.
He is right.
That are
the analytical ability. He's not right about Overwatch too. Okay, the back end that Microsoft could offer, and this is what I'm saying that Microsoft wants to buy. Microsoft will have the best gaming ecosystem in the world, and no one will ever be able to compete with that. Their ecosystem. It would take forever because they have so many resources. And now that's not me saying it's monopoly. Let me make that clear. But just in terms of the ecosystem with Game Pass on both Windows machines as well as Xboxes, right? The amount of stuff you'll be able to do through Microsoft's ecosystem for gaming, no other company's ecosystem will rival that. They'll be number one and it won't be close because Sony doesn't have an operating software, right? Or Sony doesn't also have PCs. Microsoft could do it so much better than everybody else. It could end up being incredible. I won't lie to you.
I've entered the games business with unique competitive advantages that it seemed like the best way for us to
He's not
ensure
wrong
our
about that.
continued success was to partner with a company like Microsoft.
He's not wrong about that.
Which of Activision's past franchises has the potential to make a return?
That's like asking which of my children has the most potential. We haven't made a Guitar Hero in a long time, and I think with
I'm down for that.
AI and some of the new technologies that we could employ, I think we
cool.
could create a really compelling new Guitar Hero. But I can't share with you the things that we're working on, but we have a lot of new things in production and development that require better mastery of a lot of these new technologies, but I think will be really innovative new types of game experiences.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So what did we hear here? Now, I'm going to be honest. For Bobby to come out and say, the allegations against the workplace culture were mischaracterized. If we're being intellectually honest and fair, which is what I pride myself on, there's a chance that that's true, right? There's a chance that some of those things that were being said were false. Here's the problem. I'm just sick of the he said, she said. I want to see if we're going to talk about this in the public eye, what actually happened. This needs to go to a court. This needs to go somewhere. Was the state of California full of it? Or is Activision Blizzard full of it, right? We don't know. And I'm tired of the back and forth. That's my point. Like, there are bad apples everywhere. This has been well established in the world, right? That is what it is. But is this overall theme of the company accurate? And this is why, guys, to be honest with you, I want nothing to do with Southern California because it's just so extreme nowadays. Like, everything about it is so extreme. And I'm just sick of the extremism in society. And you can be as mad at me for saying that as you want. I'm so sick of this all or nothing mentality that people have because this is the kind of world it creates, right? And that's why I'm just happy to be in Kentucky, you know? Like, that sounds crazy, but, you know, that's like the internet has gone to this, like, you know, all or nothing mental. And it makes us lose our rhyme and reason. And I think if you sit back and look at your rhyme and reason, as much as I dislike what Bobby Kotick has been doing with this company with things like Overwatch 2 and Warzone 2 and, you know, these messes that have really taken IPs that I love and just made them a mess, right? You know, I hate that, but also I need to be fair and honest intellectually with myself and that he should have a chance to speak out on it. And that's what he's coming out and saying. That's a bold thing to say. No, it's not an apology. That's not nothing. He's saying that these are wrong. And that spices things up because, you know, that means that this needs to go to a court. This needs to go to court. Put your evidence, put your cases out there for the public to see. Obviously, protect potential victims, right? Because we don't need to know that information. We don't need names. You don't need anything like that. But if this comes out and it ends up not being nearly as true as it was portrayed, that's a big deal. For him to come out and say that the way that he did, that's a big freaking deal, guys. That means a lot. So we're just going to have to wait and see some more. I'm sick of the back and forth. I'm going to tune it all out now from here on out until like there's an actual court case because, you know, at this point, you know, it's all this back and forth. Some of his statements about the Microsoft merger I found to be very interesting. His stuff about the game titles I think was a little bit off base and misleading in terms of like the quality of the product. But that's just my opinion. That's where you can start to get to a subjective view. So that was actually really interesting. I'm glad we reacted to that. And guys, keep sending me more stuff to react to. What do you guys think down in the comments? Is Bobby full of it or is he not? We don't know yet. We're going to find out. So thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time. Peace out.